Welcome to another Law Politics mashup with me, Harry Lidman, and Molly Jong-Fast on what seems to me like a pretty crazy wild day in law and politics. I nevertheless want to take a second, besides saying hi to Molly, everyone knows, special correspondent for Vanity Fair, host of the podcast Fast Politics, as
And we
I'm
ran
talking.
into each other
She has
last week in California.
We hung out. We both talked to Chris Hayes. But again, the big headline here is you've got a new book coming out in June. You want to just give us a quick skinny on that?
I mean, I have a new book coming out in June, but it's miles away. But yes, it's called How to Lose Your Mom, and it'll be interesting. So wait,
Right. We'll come and talk about it then.
Yes,
I get to go first on this time. I checked last time.
All right. Go.
And it's really important to me. I'm totally obsessed, as you won't be surprised to hear, with what's happening at DOJ.
Yes.
And it's totally clear to me as a DOJ alum and someone steeped in that culture that this is huge and very, very clear. But my question/concern is, Molly, do you think this penetrates the public mind and kind of comes home in a way that people can really see the clear line between corruption and rule of law, and it has purchase? Or is this one of three stories this week?
So let's just set the table for those who are not completely read in. I live in New York City, where we have a curse. It's called the mayoral curse, and it is real. And we have our most recent mayor is a man called Eric Adams, who basically is just shockingly corrupt at every. Let me rephrase that. It seems as if he's shockingly corrupt. Now, perhaps it is just normal business as usual with Turkey and not corrupt. But he had there were a couple years where it was like, he's going to get indicted. Then eventually he did, in fact, manage to get indicted. And now there is a bizarre situation where Trump World did this. Tom Homan, the head of ICE, went on Fox and Friends, which is Donald Trump's favorite show, and he sort of threatened the mayor and said, well, you're in trouble, but we're going to pause it as long as you do what we want you to do. It was, by the way, it's worth watching because I don't think there's ever been something like this in America. I mean,
the jocularity of it, right?
Yeah, and also, crazy, right? You can't threaten people on television. I mean, just the sheer criminess of the whole thing. At every point I was watching it thinking, oh, I'd actually read reporting about it. And I thought, oh, that can't possibly be right. And then I started watching it and I was like, oh, wow. Just shocking. So the mayor now is in this sort of detente where he thinks he is going to get pardoned, or not pardoned, but he's going to have his prosecution basically paused.
Dismissed, yeah.
But without prejudice.
Right.
So it could come back if he displeases Donald Trump and his cronies, which is absolutely, I don't think there's any precedent. It's like Watergate, if Watergate were, smoking angel dust. And, it's just so incredibly beyond the pale. Our governor, Kathy Hochul, who is very cowardly, could dismiss the mayor tomorrow if we had someone in
fire him, not dismiss charges. Yeah, right.
Yeah, be like, this is ridiculous. You're not going to drag the city through this. She will not do that, at least not yet. She is known to be quite cowardly. This would fit her personality. I would be shocked if she did it. Is that what you were asking? I can't even remember what you were asking.
Because so there's two things that are happening. So
it's a shit show here. I mean, I think everyone is horrified.
Shit show on angel dust. But yeah. I agree. That said, though, the way it really rings home to me, Molly, is what's going on within the Department of Justice, where Trump's handpicked acting deputy attorney general has basically tried to hold guns to successive heads saying, you must dismiss this case.
Right.
even though the facts and the law, I admit, are fine. That's the same as saying you must violate your oath as DOJ attorneys. And we're now up to, you mentioned Saturday Night Massacre. That was
Yeah.
3 people involved. We're now up to something like 7 or 8, 3 or 4 in Southern District of New York. Then they bring it to Main Justice, and really high level people are resigning rather than doing this. So to me, it's seismic, in some ways bigger than what happened in either Saturday Night Massacre or 2021. Here's what my question in a sentence is: will this ring home to people as a clear, this is weaponization by the Trump folks?
You're not going to have anyone working in the government. I mean, this is the accelerationist case for Trumpism, is the idea that the Justice John Roberts versus the Voting Rights Act, if you cut away in it, that is much more dangerous than if you just set fire to the whole thing. And I mean, look, are we going to be able to come out of this thing and have a normal functioning democracy? That I don't know.
Right.
That I think is a real open question. There are a number of different things that could happen, but
this hits home to regular people.
Right. But this,
That's my question. Yeah.
I mean, you're not going to have anyone working. I mean, like, these are just government agencies. I mean, that's the thing that I think is so striking about Elon, is like, this is a lot of the stuff Elon is doing. If he were a little quieter, he could get away with it without the same, like, they could legislatively cut. I mean, they control all 3 branches. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, they could cut everything. They could make deals. But the thing is, they're not such good legislators. So we find ourselves in a situation where we just have this Elon's in the computers trying to fire everyone. And, I just don't, I think that it's hard to imagine that doesn't get people's attention.
Okay, your turn, but quick legal footnote. You mentioned Roberts, who might really matter here. The person who resigned today with a blistering letter is a John Roberts clerk who had 2 tours of duty in Iraq.
Yes. And
this is so good guys, bad guys. Yeah.
Right. And the person who resigned yesterday was a Scalia clerk. I mean, you don't think of Scalia as, I mean, we're almost to Alito clerks and Thomas clerks.
Right. This is a nightmare cast of characters for DOJ. Yeah. All right.
Well,
your turn.
Also, I mean, I think what's important here to remember, and this is like, people don't go into these businesses. They don't go into the law to make money, right? They do it because they think it's right. And I think that's what we're looking at with these government employees too. They are in it to do what's right. Whereas the tech billionaires are in it to make money. So like Elon is in it to make money. And even like all of these billionaires who have like backed down and kissed the ring with Trumpism, they are, and even a lot of these Republican politicians, I mean, maybe they're afraid of getting primaried or getting death threats. But like when you look at these billionaires, you see these people are willing to do anything to protect their bottom line, CEOs, billionaires. And so you really do see these career law people are not in it for the cash.
I mean, they're in it for the pride of what they do. And the thing that I hope people recognize is they've told them to stand up and violate their oaths and lie.
Right.
They're at the absolute marrow of who they are as professionals. These are guys who, are on a fast track to judgeships and stuff, and they're just letting it go.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that is correct. Let's go to where we are here with the legality of all of this. We're seeing a lot of like Trump administration not doing the money they were supposed to, not, freezing funds that were impounded, so you have Congress allocating funds for things and the OMB freezing it and not paying them out. I talked to some academics this week who said that a lot of the NIH funds are not flowing, right? Even though a court has ordered them to start paying, they're still not paying. So what happens now?
Okay, first, is it illegal? You bet. This is third grade stuff. Congress passes laws, and in their laws, they say, give X money. We've appropriated it to these people. That's not something now for the executive that executes the laws that he wasn't around for third grade to just ignore. So there have been other administrations that have pushed on the envelope. They're just saying, screw you, we don't follow the law, make us do it. So what happens now? Lawsuits, there are 40 of them, and there's been injunctions entered in 6 of them. And I think the ones you mentioned will, in fact, be enjoined. Then they'll go to, we put the freeze on it for 3 days so we can then have a trial. They have a trial. I think it does eventually play out, Molly, and they have these very aggressive assertions of executive power. I don't care what Congress says. I can do whatever I want. That one of them reaches the Supreme Court. And if the court surprises us, as it did with immunity, then they unwind everything and they get away with it. But I think in the short term, it gets enjoined. And the immediate crisis question is, does Trump ignore what courts tell them? That would be the sort of ultimate constitutional crisis. But I think for now, it goes to courts, district courts, who have to take the law as it is, and they enjoin it.
So enjoin it means what?
I'm sorry, they say you can't do this. They freeze it. They put a freeze on it, and then the court, then the executive is supposed to appeal that, which they've done in a couple instances. Of course, if they instead, and this is like J.D. Vance's whispers, say, screw you, we're going to do it, we're going to impound
which is what
anyway.
J.D. Vance has been tweeting about. Yeah, go on.
Right. Then we are in, this never happened. Whatever people say, I just had a Substack about this. If you go through the historical parallels, it's never happened. And we would be really, really
up against it.
And up against it. Exactly right. Constitutional crisis.
And just like walk me through, if you wanted to do more. So say you wanted to say they're like, no, what can the courts do?
The courts can absolutely order them. And there are cases in which not the president, but like in the civil rights era, Governor Falbus of Arkansas said no. And the court said, we mean it. And all 9 of us sign it. And you know what? He knuckled under. And so that the courts will say it very firmly. And I think they will, by the way, even this Supreme Court. Then Trump says, fuck you. I'll take that as a talking feds vulgarity, not a faster politics one. And we are up against it, like way, way up against it. It's like, military force and popular sentiment. This is exactly what the framers warn about, not to get too pointy headed. But if the executive says, I don't care, you said that, but I'm not going to do it anyway. This is the soul of an authoritarian society, right? So
yeah, pretty scary.
Talking Feds is supported by the Brennan Center for Justice. In this new political era, the Brennan Center will do what they do best: defend the Constitution and the rule of law. They're prepared to fight against presidential overreach and will continue advocating for reforms to resist weaponized government, stop billionaires from corrupting our elections, and ensure every eligible American has the freedom to vote. Stay informed by visiting BrennanCenter.org.
Well, I always love looking at your stuff in preparation for this, even though so much is happening now. But I did want to talk to you. You've had a couple of Vanity Fair articles about Elon Musk on just on some journalistic level. What a weird and crazy figure. But you said most recently that he's ushered in a new regime, one that defies Bill Gates's spirit. By the way, new book from him we'll be checking out, of capitalistic largesse. And basically, he seems kind of like Trump to be not just indifferent to, but contemptuous of humanitarian impulses, aid, that is not only feels like the right thing to do, but seems to be, administration after administration has concluded, in our national interests. So I get the strong sense that comes through is we're in a new era to the extent about capitalism itself, to the extent Musk is defining it. Is that right? And what's the real sort of, here's my question: what conversation should we be having about Musk that maybe is getting lost in just the sheer spectacle of his dancing around and insulting people and doing crazy stuff?
What should not be lost is, why is he in the computers? Why does he need to go into the computers? If he wants to have an audit, why not have an audit? Why does he need to bring his ideological young coders, many of whom he shares ideological affiliations with? Why are they in the
Let's just say
computers?
far right. Yeah.
Why? Like, just explain to us why, because nobody can tell us why, right? The admin won't tell us why. He won't tell us why. He's fighting fraud. He has yet to find any fraud. What he's found are things that he doesn't like, which, well, he doesn't think that there should be money, that USAID should spend money on, HIV prevention.
Right.
He
Yeah.
may not like that, but that's not fraud. That's just something he doesn't like. So the question is, what are we doing here? And the fact that we can't get an answer, and the fact that the answers we're getting are either completely divorced from what sounds reasonable. I mean, like, that is the thing that gets me, that is the big question, is like, why does he need to get in those computers? Is he training AI? Because we've seen AI. There's so much stuff to train AI on. It hardly seems necessary to train it on all of our federal information. So what are we looking at? What is he doing? Why is he in there? And I think
And which we would need some financial information, among other things, that so far he hasn't given, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's a big question. And then, I mean, I have other thoughts, like he does use this anti-democracy language, as pretends that he's spreading democracy. He says, I want to restore democracy. He's mad at judges for checks and balances. He says, America can't be a democracy if judges have checks and balances. I mean, he uses a lot of that Orwellian doublespeak that is pretty destructive, but it's also just quite strange. And like, I think about yesterday when Modi, the president of India, tweeted out a photo, and on one side is him and all of his advisors, and the other side is Elon, his third wife, maybe not wife, and many of his children. And
one on his yeah.
Right. But it's also like, I understand having kids. I have a lot of kids. I had them in my 20s. But, there's also places to bring your kids and places not to bring your kids. And when you're negotiating with the president of India, first of all, by the way, why he's negotiating with the president of India when he's not an elected official, okay. But even still, like, I mean, just the idea that that a Republican donor, because that's all he is, right, is involving himself in just dismantling the federal government, I think that's a big deal.
I get off the train right there, but I'm, legal.
Yeah. So, okay. But I mean, I'm not entirely sure. And his polling, Trump is in this honeymoon period where his polling is as good as it's ever been. But even in this honeymoon period, Elon's polling is not great. He's still underwater about 9 points. And there is no world in which there are, he's a billionaire. He's not even fucking from here, right? He is from South Africa. His parents, I mean, there are just so many reasons why American voters, unless, I mean, I don't know, maybe TikTok and the algorithms can do something to make this guy seem likable, but in my mind, I think they have a real uphill climb.
So you think he's going to crash and burn at some point?
I mean, I can't, first, I think someone who doesn't sleep at all is heading for problems, right?
Yeah.
Number one, I mean, I personally need to sleep at least 6-7 hours a night. So that is number one. But also, I just don't, we've had this American experiment, and it has never involved a really rich guy from somewhere else coming in.
Yeah. Richest in the world. Yeah. It does seem, unprecedented, and certainly not what people voted for. I kind of thought he was just a sort of mincing little supporter, and all of a sudden he's running the joint. Okay, your turn.
Yeah. So I want you to talk to me about, like, is what Elon Musk is doing, is it illegal? And if it is illegal, how could that be prosecuted?
Yeah. It's a great question, because what it really is like mind blowing. Like, what are you even thinking? But then you take a deep breath and get down to law. And he was sued twice yesterday on a theory, Molly, that is legal and nerdy, but I think has teeth. So and it's one that conservatives have always loved. Here's the
And this
basic.
is the Democratic attorneys generals doing this.
Well, in general, you see the 19, 20, 22 Democratic AGs really stepping up. But here's a creative lawsuit, and offhand, Larry Tribe, others, seems pretty good to us, Jeff Blattner. Here's the deal. There are three kinds of people who work in the executive branch. Principal officers like cabinet, inferior officers but they're important, U.S. attorneys, and then everybody else. The law is clear. For inferior officers, you can appoint them if you're president, but Congress has to authorize you to do it. That's what was happening with the whole Jack Smith thing. Principal officers have to be nominated by the president and confirmed. That is the appointments clause, which the conservatives are so into, saying you can't mess with the president's power. And what makes a principal officer or inferior officer? It's a little loosey-goosey. It's based on responsibilities and lines of authority. But who the hell is this guy? He is now, I think, been clearly put above the cabinet. The cabinet people are all sort of reporting to him. He, and this is the lawsuit, really seems like he's been made a principal officer. And if that's right, got to nominate him and confirm him. So that's a very interesting legal challenge. Then everything else, Trump is trying to get away with it, saying, oh, he's, giving advice and we're adopting it. Different parts of that advice are illegal, like don't spend the money that Congress told you to spend. But the general attack on Musk himself, your question, what is he doing here? And who is this guy? I think the best legal garb for that theory is you've given him that kind of authority. You got to treat him differently under the Constitution.
Right. And I mean, it just seems so incredibly shocking.
Well, that's part of it. It's like, oh, it's got to be illegal. But then what do lawyers do? They got to take that feeling, go in the law books and figure out something that'll have purchase in the courts. But I think this is a good one. It's not the only one. But it's the best one I've heard. We'll see how it goes. As I say, 2 of them were filed just yesterday. So
great.
All right, my last one to you is, this in the SDNY thing, you have Trump, trying to say we're not weaponizing government. They were, and now it doesn't hunt. You had him in the campaign, Molly, saying, oh, I'm not for Project 2025. And sure as hell, here he is. And it's just page after page of Project 2025. And as you've pointed out, the guy is at his highest rating ever. So do we think that not only his weird charisma, whatever the hell it is, Trump factor, it's not just that, but actually the Project 2025 kind of pretty extreme, mean-spirited principles have now attracted the support of the majority of the American people?
No. I think what's happening is that they haven't seen any of it in action.
Yeah.
So, in some ways, I think Democrats were very much a victim of their own success when it came to Trump. So they prevented a lot of what Trump wanted, right? Like he wanted to repeal Obamacare. He was not able to do that. There were all these different things he wanted to do that he wasn't able to do. And in the end of the Trump admin, government spending was way up. Now, it was because of the pandemic, but it was. So Democrats are like, oh, he's going to do Project 2025. And people were like, yeah, maybe.
They had the book up at the convention, right?
Right. Yeah. But they were like, yeah, maybe. But last time he didn't.
Yeah.
So I think it was very hard to make the case that was going to happen because there wasn't a lot of precedent for it. So what I think now, as we look onto this, you're seeing cuts at the VA and cuts for Medicare. And these are cuts. These are not even legislated cuts. These are just Elon fork in the road email cuts. And so those cuts, if they're really accurate, and again, I don't know how, but even just like the freeze, the NIH freeze, right? The NIH funding freeze. These things are not popular, right? Like people don't like the reason why billionaires have had to spend billions and billions of dollars trying to promote tax cuts and stuff like that is because voters don't like it, right? They don't like tax cuts for corporations. Who is that for? Corporations, not for, shareholders. So Republicans. So I do think that's going to be I think that as it goes through, people are going to see like, oh, I used to have this and now I don't. Oh, who's president? I mean, I think that is definitely going to happen and be real. And you're already seeing like cuts to SNAP, these are things that these are Trump voters, right? These red states are not filled with
people in Alabama
people.
now can't pay their electric bills, right?
Right. Yeah. And even like in Alabama is a really good example because the University of Alabama is the biggest employer in that state. So you have funding frozen to the largest employer in a red state. I'm sorry, but like sooner or later that's going to catch up with you. So now the question, I think the real question will be how much can like the fake news, I don't even want to say fake news, how much can this sort of MAGA media complex cover for this? Like, how much can they spin? Can they spin, you used to get $200 a week, now you get $100 a week. Can they spin that? Maybe they can. I don't know. I'm not a psychic. But I think that's where we're going to get to.
Got it. Yeah, Trump said the other day, there now will be paying it first, but they'll also, right.
It's of course. I mean, Elon said that.
Right.
I mean, you're taking stuff away from people. But again, like Democrats kept saying, like, they're going to do this. And Trump voters are like, no.
Yeah.
So, Jesse, we are out of time. Thank you.
Always great. Another Molly mashup coming next month. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
man. Heavy times for both of us.
Good. Yeah, appreciate you.
Bye-bye. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.